Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have Jason Lewis. He is active duty police officer, and he is going to talk to us about his experience with burnout today. So, without further ado, we will go into it, but I just want to remind you that we are sponsored by the motorcycle retreat that I'm putting together in May 2023, where we're going to start in Sedona, do 1,300 miles, and learn a lot about ourselves through the process. So if you want more information about that, links down in the bio for that. And I always like to say before we start, take one thing away from this and actually put it into action. We'll have a lot of nuggets, as I call them, and a lot of tools, but just take one thing away and start actually implementing it, because you can have a lot of tools, but if you never take action on them, what's the point of them? So without waiting any longer, Jason, why don't you take it away? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your policing career, because I know you've been doing it for quite a while now.
Yeah, hi Chris. Thanks for having me here. I am a active duty patrol sergeant in Southern California. I've got about 23 years on now, and I previously worked at our in-service training center. So I was the in-service training sergeant for about 4 years, and then before that, I've done a little bit of everything. I've worked custody. I was a bailiff. I worked patrol as a deputy. I worked at the academy as a deputy. I worked detectives. I worked direct enforcement. But right now, I'm super happy just being on patrol as a sergeant. People my whole career have told me that that's the best spot on the agency, and I think they might actually be right.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So
Yeah.
uh let's go back, because I know you're also running some other stuff that's really good for law enforcement and helping out the supervisors. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. So everybody wait for that one. Uh what got you into policing in the first place?
Well, when I was 16, I didn't really have much going on. And my mom found an article in the newspaper about a program called the Explorers. Uh, and it was where you could volunteer with the police department as a teenager. And so she signed me up. I went to that and I fell in love with it right off the bat. And it became my whole life outside of school was being an explorer. I rose to the highest ranks of being an explorer. And at 19 and a half, which was the minimum age you could be to get into the academy, that's when I got into the academy. So, I mean, almost to the day of when I could get in, that's when I got in and went through the academy and been doing it ever since then.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And so from there, where'd you go? So you did obviously patrol in the very beginning,
Now,
as you normally do,
on,
or not?
on our agency, you have to go through the jails first. So I spent 2.5 years in the jails, and then from there, I spent I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years on patrol.
Hmm.
And I would say during that time is when I got burned out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I ended up leaving our agency after that time.
How far into your career did you end up leaving the agency?
I was about 7 years in, I think,
It
at that
seems
time.
like that's the number, man. It seems like
It
7 years.
does.
Mine was 7 years. A lot of people that
Yeah.
I know it's 7 years, and then after that, it's like quite a lot longer. If or 10 years is
Yeah.
kind of the next kind of little hump ish if you're gonna have a one. But then it's quite a while later. Okay, so 7 years in. How long had you been on patrol for?
Somewhere around 5 years,
Yeah,
give or take whatever, 6 months, I don't know.
yeah.
But probably around 5 years. On patrol in the same city, the same general area, with the same people.
Let's
Um,
say working and dealing with the same people probably over and over and over
right,
again.
right. And
Yeah.
you get to the point. I remember one time I was taking a domestic incident report because at that time you had to write it. Anytime you went to a domestic incident, you had to write a report. It didn't matter what the argument was about. If it was physical, it didn't matter. You had to write a report. And so here I am interviewing this husband and wife about why they had a fight about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Why did they have a fight about a peanut butter and jelly
they,
sandwich?
they had an argument about a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and all I could think about was, what in the world am I doing here? What that's one of my pivotal moments that I knew, like, I'm burned out. What
Yeah.
am I doing?
So what do you define burnout as so that everybody can kind of get an indication? Because I know everybody has a different variations of burnout and like some is really severe, some not so much. What would you identify burnout as in yourself?
You know, um, I'm probably not the best person to ask on what the definition is,
Not for you, your
because
definition.
up until that time, I had been through a couple really serious critical incidents, and I use the peanut butter and jelly sandwich thing as like that's when I knew I was burned out. But the question is, how much did those critical incidents play into me feeling like that, or how much did they not? Uh, for me, burnout is when you just don't want to go to do what you have to do, like going to work. You don't want to do that anymore. It's not fun. Um, and you just don't have the mental clarity to perform at the level that you should be performing at. To me, that's being burned out.
Yeah, I'm not. So, okay, so you identify like was it right then you're like, okay, I need to do something about this, or was it a flow like a lead up after that peanut butter and jelly situation?
I think it I think it was a lead up for about a year. I was young, I was probably 26 years old,
Yeah.
27. I think I was 27 actually. I didn't know why I didn't want to be there anymore. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to go do something different. And a lot of that probably had to do with getting into it so young.
Yeah.
At 19 and a half, it's not like I went to college, and had that college experience or did anything beforehand. So, um, I think it was about a year long, just like progression of I got to do something else.
What made you actually decide to go do something? Did you actually resign, or did they give you leave without pay?
No, I resigned. We at the time the real estate market was doing really well in the United States, and we had invested in some property in Arizona, and we had also invested in property in Texas, and really wanted to move to Texas. So we made a move to Texas and started our own business. Me and my now wife.
Oh, okay. What'd you guys start? If you don't mind me asking.
Uh, it was an absolutely miserable experience
It didn't help with the burnout.
doing advertising for home contractors. It did help with the burnout from the perspective of it was something different and somewhere different, So that change of pace was important, but dealing with people outside of law enforcement for me was miserable. I didn't like dealing with contractors who didn't want to pay or were tough to deal with. It was a different group of people that I didn't enjoy working with.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So you went, you left, you resigned. How? And then I know you and I mentioned you said you went and did some like a bit of a searching trip as such. What got you to go do that?
I was on the phone while we were in Texas and miserable in my business. I was talking to a friend and I said, man, one thing that I've always wanted to do is go backpacking around the world. Just sell everything and go backpacking around the world. And he goes, why don't you? And I said, uh, I don't know. Why don't I? So, we actually did it. We sold everything that we had. We had no more possessions except for what was in a small storage shed, and we left and we backpacked around the world for a year. And that was a once in a lifetime experience. It was amazing. You talk about fixing the burnout, that'll fix your burnout. And met some amazing people all around the world, went to the most amazing places, and it was truly a great adventure.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. What would you say some of the key takeaways that you learned from that backpacking adventure that you still use to this day back in law enforcement? We'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, that you still
Well,
use to this day.
yeah, one is perspective. Going to third world countries and places like in the mountains, in South America and stuff like that, and just seeing how other people live in Asia, and how they can still be happy and fulfilled. And seeing how easy it is here, living here. Now I'm back and I'm in a house and I have running water and television whenever I want it, and a car. Uh, and so I would say perspective number one is I always feel spoiled now in my job and in my life, because I am,
Yeah.
you know.
So
So
how do you bring yourself, in those really hard days? Because I know in law enforcement, I know I'm not in it anymore, but I know there's those really hard days where it's just maybe there's one of those traumatic jobs or, those incidents that happen. What do you do to keep that perspective, to remind yourself of, hey, I actually am very privileged here?
I feel like the experiences I've had keep me there anyway. But when it's a tough day, I guess a great example is my shift went to a pretty gnarly suicide. I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And the guy, he used a rifle. He used a rifle in his garage. So basically, he was everywhere
Yep.
in the garage. um,
Yep.
and stuff like that. People think people think it doesn't affect uh, the officers that go there. And just like last week, I had this lady say, I couldn't do what you do, seeing dead people all the time and dealing with that stuff. And it's like, I'm no. What do you think I am? I'm
Yeah.
I'm no.
Just because I have a uniform on, I'm no different to you.
Yeah, yeah. And I assure you, I didn't want to get into this job to do that.
Yeah.
I just do it because I have to. But that scene right there was that affected my officers. It was clear as day. Just waiting for the coroner to show up, and outside and hearing the conversation and that kind of stuff. It was a different one for everybody. And so, everywhere you walked on his brains,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that kind of thing is different. Um, and I would say we just lean on each other. I don't ignore it anymore. When I came up in law enforcement, and I'm sure when you were in it, it was
Mhm.
the culture was you just suck it up.
Yeah.
You don't talk about that kind of stuff. You just suck it up. And it's not like that anymore. And certainly on my shift, I don't keep a culture like that anymore. And so we talk about it openly, and we have open discussions about anything. There's no false bravado nonsense
Yeah.
like can be on other shifts. And so I think that camaraderie and that honesty really helps work through it together.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. How do you bring that perspective of all the, going to that backpacking trip? How do you bring the perspective of all of that to your officers now?
I don't know if I can ever bring the perspective to somebody, because it's kind of the thing you have to live through. Um, but what I do is I do my best to have humility
Mm,
and admit when I make a mistake, as
yeah,
the sergeant on the shift, admit when I make a mistake, try to work things out better. If they ask me a question and I don't know, it's just I don't, I don't know. Let's find out together.
yeah,
That used to be a major no-no in law enforcement, was do not ever say you don't know, right? What dumb advice that is.
yeah.
Um, just so many things that used to be that I was brought up to be, because in a way I was brought up by law enforcement, was wrong. And so I
Yeah.
try not to, I don't instill that culture in the younger officers that are there now.
So you left, you went on, you started this business, you went on a bit of a soul searching trip. We have something in common there. We both did a soul searching trip.
Nice, nice.
Came back a different person, and then you decided to go back into law enforcement. What made you
I did.
decide to go back to law enforcement?
I missed it. I missed living in Southern California. I missed my family. I missed having a purpose, because to me, law enforcement is the ultimate purpose. It's what keeps society functioning.
True.
And when you don't have law enforcement, even the people, a lot of people outside of law enforcement don't understand, but there are some very, very bad people out there. And when you don't have law enforcement, those people would take over, and the society could not function. So I truly believe in the mission of law enforcement. I love it. I love the camaraderie. I love the talking smack to each other, joking around, serving the community, having people wave. I love all that stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, uh, obviously, you've been back in it longer than you were before you burned out, before you left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why do you believe that it's different now? Is it just the perspective side of stuff, or is there other things that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's the perspective stuff. It's also focusing more on jujitsu is my thing, so I like to train jujitsu. So I have stuff outside of law enforcement. And I also have a few rules that I abide by now. Like I don't stay anywhere for more than 3 to 4 years. I'll move, within the agency somewhere else.
Yeah,
Because I just know myself and I know I'll get burned out. It doesn't matter where I'm at.
yeah,
So it's that kind of stuff, and it's having a family that keeps me grounded now, whereas before I was much younger, I didn't have a family. Um, so I think that kind of stuff. I'm not perfect at it. It's
yeah,
difficult, but certainly it's much easier now. I still love going to work. I don't, if I have to go to the only thing that sucks about going to work is getting up at 4 in the morning. Other than that, it's fun. It's fun being there. Just the other day I was trampling down in the river bottom looking for you know drug addicts and stuff like that, and it was fun. It was, I don't know, it was
yeah,
fun.
yeah. You just keep that fun attitude. Hey, I love the attitude that you have towards it. It's fun. That's just what it is, and that's what
Yeah,
it seems like you have days that you're like, oh, I guarantee you'll have days that you're like, why do I do this again? And then you're like, oh yeah, this is why, because it's
yeah.
fun. um,
It's also way easier as you promote. As you promote, you get more autonomy. You get to do the things you want to do. You don't have to write all the paperwork, that kind of stuff. So you do have kind of an advantage as you promote up the ranks. The job gets easier and easier as you go up.
Yeah, nah, definitely. Now, um, what is it that you do with the officers that you lead? Because it doesn't sound like you're a manager. It sounds like you're actually more of a leader than anything. What do you do to lead your officers to make sure that, to help guide them so that they don't end up where you did at that 7 year mark?
One is I check in on them. I'm really big into briefing training, but sometimes briefing is just about, hey, what do you have going on?
Yeah,
We did a briefing one day on what are your hobbies outside of work, So we just talked about each other's hobbies.
yeah,
One of them did origami, which origamist is a thing, so and so here's a bunch of cops around a table, learning how to fold in paper into like a pterodactyl or whatever it is that we did, and so it's just that kind of stuff that I try to be much more personable about it than supervisors would have been when I first came on. It was that that hard nosed sergeant, who was grumpy all the time, and you know why because he was burned out.
yep.
They were all burned out.
I'm glad you said that because you see it all the time. You're like, yeah, he's burned out and he's burned out. Oh, she's burned out. Yeah, okay, yeah, you can see it a
Yeah,
mile away.
yeah,
Once you've been burned out real bad, you're like, oh, that's what's going on with that. Was that how I was?
yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
awesome that you bring some of that humility to the job. The outside, the person outside of the uniform into each other and into the job because yeah, like you said, it is so important. Um,
You know what? Another thing that I try to be conscious about and do is I try to interact with the public much more now than I used to.
yeah,
When I was brand new, it was a lot more about us versus them kind of mentality. And now it's not. I go and I develop relationships within the community. Like I'm really into pizza. Pizza's kind of like my thing. I love making pizza, and I'm really a snob about it. But
well, I know where
I
I'm
have this
coming for pizza then.
yeah, I have this. There's a pizza shop that the guy he likes making sourdough New York pizzas just like I do. So I go in there all the time, and Last time I was in there, I went in the back and I made a pizza with him in uniform, and everybody got a big kick out of it. And he took video for Instagram and everything, and it was a fun time. And I brought back pizzas for my shift, and we all had pizza. It's like you can have a lot of fun like that on patrol if you want to. You can be hard nosed and us against them and stay in your car and not talk to people, or you can just go out and see the cool things that are in your community and have fun and build relationships with people. And I think that's really big too
No,
with
definitely.
fighting
I love
burnout.
that. I love how you're doing that. And it makes that relationship between civilian and law enforcement, which, there is that gap because there is, law enforcement has to uphold the law. Um, and it closes that gap as such, is where I'm going with that. How do you, because I know I've talked to a lot of officers and there's a lot of different ways, and I still talk to a lot, and as I know you do as well. How do you counteract the high vigilance and the threat side of stuff, that threat side of your brain when it comes into, I'm going to have fun with the public, I'm going to interact with them, but yet obviously you still have that safety side. It was only just a month ago, we had 7 cops get shot and a few of them were ambushes. How do you personally counteract that side of your lizard brain so that it doesn't take over?
It is difficult, but I feel like it gets easier as you get older and more experienced. Like officer safety stuff is really ingrained in me to where it's a part of me. I don't have to think about it anymore. It's just I just, you'll never see me in a restaurant with my back to the door. It's just
Yeah.
it's not even something that goes through my mind. It just happens. For me, it's education. So training is really big to me, and education is really big. So knowing what you can and cannot do, and understanding the understanding officer safety, and how you can be better, and how you can put yourself in situations where you're not, instead of knocking on the door, you're back at the car and you're asking dispatch to have the person walk out to talk to you. Things like that. You can really put yourself in positions to succeed, and not have to be at such a hyper vigilant state
Yeah.
when critical incidents happen. Of course you do, but the preparation that I did beforehand and that I did with my shift beforehand sets us up for success. So I think that calms a lot of that stressor down. Jiu-jitsu puts you in positions where you're in fights all the time. You're getting smashed all the time. And you have to adapt and learn to work in that environment. And then when the last time I used to force happen on my shift that I was involved in, it was I told the other deputies not even to get involved, just step back, because it just there was nothing stressful about it for me.
Yeah.
And that's only not because I'm some super tough guy. I'm not. It's just being there and building the mental map, and didn't didn't matter what the guy did. I just transitioned to a different position. It was
Yeah.
fine.
So experience and training, is what I heard
Yeah.
a lot there is, and it's so important when you're confident in something, you're smoother, it's easier, you don't have to use it as soon. No, that's awesome. Now, um, Jason, what do you feel like? So if you could go back and teach your cadet self, or yourself back in the very beginning, one thing, what would it be?
Would he have listened?
Okay, and he would have listened.
Gosh, that's a really great question. Off the top of my head, I guess I would say that law enforcement isn't really about being the super tough guy. When I was an explorer, it was a different world, and so people. I remember riding along with deputies, and like somebody would come to ask a question, and the deputy would pull their gun out and push it up against the door, just in case this
Yeah, I've done
was somebody that
ride-alongs
was
with that.
or things that or going chest like officers going chest to chest with people and challenging them and stuff like that. uh and all that is, it's not it's I remember in the academy being told that they were telling us a story about this officer and how he was a really good officer because he never asked for backup. And so the one day that he asked for backup was when they knew something was really wrong. And now me as an adult, as a supervisor, and 23 years on and stuff, I go, all that stuff is stupid, is dumb. It's just
Yeah.
it's dumb. uh you don't, why go chest to chest with somebody? You're putting yourself in striking range, and for what? To prove something to some drunk idiot? That's
Yeah.
why. um so I think it's more about just get out there into the community and meet people. And the vast majority of the public really supports law enforcement. They want you to be that hero, that Superman type person, and the more that you're like that Mr. Tough Guy jerk, you're not really fulfilling that role for them or for yourself, to be quite honest.
To drop a bunch of the ego and just be yourself.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you're not Mr. Tough Guy. You're not, you're you're just a dude just like anybody else is out there, right? So use
Yeah.
your the reason we win is because we use our resources. We get our people there and our tools, take our time, build a game plan, all that kind of stuff. That's what makes you Mr. Tough Guy, is just being smart, using your brain.
Nah, I couldn't agree. Couldn't agree more. Um, I'm a huge why guy, Jason. I like to know people's why, like what makes them tick, who they are deep down inside. Mine is that I help people see themselves, or I want to be seen. So now I help myself and others truly see ourselves.
Hmm.
What would you say your why is that ticked you through, going into explorers and being a great explorer, and then now going into law enforcement and doing everything that you have done and how you've helped everybody, and now with your even with your briefing room trainings that you're running, which we'll talk about in a minute. What do you believe is your why that drives all of that?
I think I have a really strong sense of right and wrong and good versus evil. And I don't really know where that comes from. Sometimes I think it comes from watching cartoons as a as a really young kid, like He-Man and Voltron and the Transformers and G.I. Joe, uh, and Superman movies,
Yep.
with Christopher Reeves. All that stuff. It really is ingrained deep down in me. And so my why is I like being the good guy that comes in and helps people in their time of need.
Mm.
And that's truly the deepest part of me, is that. So that's my why for why I do what I do.
No, I love that. I love that, man. Let's talk a little bit about the briefing room. Tell me a little bit about that, so listeners and viewers, and I know there's chiefs and all that listen to this podcast. Um, what? Just tell me a little bit about the briefing room, how it works, and what it's about.
The briefing room is a subscription based website that agencies subscribe to, and it bridges the gap between minimum state standards, which are wholly inadequate for training law enforcement today. It bridges the gap between minimum state standards and what officers really need to know in order to be successful in law enforcement today. So, uh, at thebriefingroom.com, we provide what we call RISE training blocks. So, a RISE training block is designed for a supervisor to use during briefing. The supervisor can come in just 1 minute before briefing. They have access to any RISE training block they want. A RISE training block contains a 90-second video that covers one key concept. It provides a key points worksheet. So the sergeant has questions they can ask of their shift after the video plays. And then it has all the additional resources to take them further if they want to dive deeper into that topic. So instantly, a supervisor doesn't have to have the stress of trying to prepare training for their shift during briefing before every shift. Instead, they can just log in, find a topic, and go right then with quick training that gets their officers trained in one concept and out the door. And then every Tuesday and Thursday, we add a new RISE training block. So they're very contemporary. Whatever's going on in society at that time, a new case law comes out, some viral video comes out. we put a RISE training block out about it, and sergeants can have access to that training.
Oh, that's awesome. What feedback are you getting about it?
uh, good, we're getting really good feedback. We just soft launched last month, and the feedback has been tremendous. People really love it, so it's taken off like just like we had hoped, because it's addressing a problem that we were having. We're all active duty officers. None of this is, somebody without law enforcement experience or somebody with uh, uh, law enforcement experience from a long time ago. We're all active duty law enforcement. So we come across things like, a great example is I went to a hotel where my guys were on scene of a dead body that was alone in a hotel room. And the question comes up, does a dead body have, in the United States, does a dead body have Fourth Amendment protections from the Constitution? Uh, I don't know. That's a really good question.
That's a good question. That is a good question. Does it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what do? So we research, we find the answer, we build a RISE training block around it, and now all sergeants have access to that same question. So it's like I was telling you earlier, we did a whole series on how do you do death notifications. No one teaches you how to knock on someone's door and tell them that their son died in a traffic collision at 2 a.m. You're just told to go do it. So we went and sought out an expert, and he gave us guidelines on how do you go do a death notification, how do you deal with grief in other people, and then, by the way, how do you deal with grief in yourself as the officer. So those are all training topics you just don't get anywhere else. You can't rely on an attorney with no law enforcement experience to interpret things like case law and apply them to a profession that they've never worked in. So it coming from active duty law enforcement officers to us is huge, and also to the people that use the briefing room is really big as well. So you'll see how, if you go to thebriefingroom.com, you'll see, I mean, we have a whole mock agency. We have uniforms. We reenact things that we do, things that we say to do. We do them in uniform. We don't necessarily, like, we don't teach defensive tactics per se, even though many of us are defensive tactics instructors, but we do teach principles. And if we teach a principle, we show that it can be done in full uniform from head to toe on pavement with an actively resisting suspect. When you see me in a video fighting somebody, that person was literally told, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Bite, punch, kick, fight as hard as you can. And
Make it
it's
real.
to show that it can be done.
Yeah, make it real. Make it real. No, I love it. I love this. So, how do people find? Obviously, I think you did just say it there, but I just wanted to just reconfirm it in. How do people find more information about the briefing room?
So there's two ways. They can go to thebriefingroom.com, and that's our website. On the website, you can get access to some free videos as well if you sign up. You can also see an example of a RISE training block on our website. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of free training on LinkedIn because I just
I
want I
saw
just
that.
want cops to have access to the training. So you can connect with me, Jason Lewis, Louis, on LinkedIn, and you'll see a bunch of my training there. So those are the two ways you can really connect with me.
Perfect. And we'll put those links down in the description down below as well, so people have quick access to them. Uh, the last question that I have, Jason, that I always like to ask is, what would you say your top tip to self-happiness is?
Ooh, when you start feeling burned out, just get away a little bit. Sometimes that's going to do a hobby that you like to do. Sometimes it's taking a couple of days off and going on a trip somewhere, which for me is huge. If I can get out and go to Arizona or something for a couple of days, coming back is very different than just taking a couple of days off of work, going
Mm,
somewhere, right? So just getting away for a little bit, I think helps you get a different perspective. So whatever your hobby is, do that. And then if you need a couple weeks off, take the time off.
mm.
And then honestly, if you're not happy, go find something else to do. I mean, you only have one life, and there's no reason to sit there and be angry because you're trying to hold on to a retirement that's way down the road.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other things that you can do in life.
No, I love that, Jason. Yeah, take that time out is definitely a key thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be months and months. If you get on top of it quickly, it can just be, a day or two, getting away, having some new scenery, seeing something new, looking at a different perspective, as we talked about already. Uh,
Yeah.
any last word, Jason, before we wrap up?
Try if you're currently working, try to go interact with your community more. Whatever your hobby is, maybe it's skateboarding or maybe it's whatever your interests are, video games. Just go find a shop like that and go start talking to people that are in there. You'd be surprised how much they want to open up to you. They get a kick out of you being there in uniform, and it turns into a little bit of a show. But just interacting with people, say hi, say go to the park and walk around the park. I think getting outside of your patrol car when you're not on a call for service, just going and doing things is really big for enjoying life and enjoying being out amongst people.
No, I
And to
love it.
seek help. Seek
Yes.
help. If you go through a gnarly situation, when I was younger, I was in a situation where a lady held me at shotgun gunpoint. And after that, I just went to my next call.
As you do,
uh,
as you do, just rub it off. I'm Superman.
it, and I'm sure that kind of stuff affects you more than you realize. So find somebody you can talk to, and I'm not gonna lie and say it's the department psychologist because it may be if you do have a great one, and it may not be if you don't have a great one. But seek it out from somebody. Somebody.
I love that. I went to I went to the police psychologist and I went to three other counselors before I found a good one. So definitely don't just expect that they're going to relate to you because it not necessarily. So I love those. Um, awesome, Jason. Well, thank you so much for being here. And again, for all you listening and watching, I do appreciate you for watching and listening. So make sure that if you could, please share and like, subscribe, share this episode out to somebody that would pick something up from this, and just implement one thing today. And if you do need any assistance, reach out to Jason through LinkedIn or thebriefingroom.com, or you can reach out to myself at chris@knockingdemoncoaching.com, and all the links are down in the bio down below. And that motorcycle retreat we were running is down there too. We want you to stay safe. We want you to take care of yourself, number one, first off, so that then you can continue to look after us. And thank you, Jason, for looking after the community and for doing all the great hard work that you're doing to not just keep the community safe, but also to help all of our offices out with the briefing room. So appreciate you being here. And until next time, everyone, keep training hard so that when those tests do come, and they will come, they're a little bit easier.
Thank you, Chris.